Thanks for joining us here at Rose Quartz Mediumship Podcast, where we simply adore anything and everything healing and metaphysically based. As some of you guys know, I am currently in a 3-year training program called Somatic Experiencing International. And every quarter or so, I have 2 days of training, 2 8-hour days of training in a weekend. And then the next weekend, I have 2 more 8-hour days of training. So it's back-to-back 2 weekends in a row. And I'm just coming out of one of those weekends. And I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience that I had in the training that was really profound. And I wanted to break down some of the details of what happened for me. During the training, the instructor of the program asks if there's anybody who wants to be the demonstration for the class. And I had volunteered, saying that I was happy to be used as a demonstration. And this past weekend, I was picked as the person that she was going to do the demonstration on. And we were doing the demonstration around a fight response, a flight response, or a freeze response. And what ended up coming up for me was an event when I was a small child swimming in our family's pond. I was there with all of my cousins, my mom, and my aunts. And we were all swimming in the pond, which was not uncommon. I was raised in the country on a farm, and we got together during the summer at least once a day, sometimes twice, and occasionally 3 times to go swimming. And all of the cousins would meet at the pond and swim for who knows how long. As a child, it felt like it went by with a blink of an eye, but I'm quite sure that it was at least an hour or 2 every time that we went. And on one of those events, my mom and my aunts were sitting watching us and shelling peas. And I was fairly young, and I just learned how to dive. I probably didn't just learn. I probably had learned a period of time ago, but was practicing my diving. And I dove off of the wooden dock that we had at the pond. And when I came up under the dock, which was really, really disorienting to me. And the water was high enough that there wasn't space for me to breathe under the dock. And so I banged my head against the dock, which was my first inclination that I was under the dock, because I had anticipated coming up out in the pond. But however it was that I dove, I must have dove off of the dock and come up underneath it. And I don't know how long the event lasted, but in however long it lasted, I was hitting my head against the dock, trying to figure out what was happening, why I hadn't come up. And as the realization was hitting me that I was actually under the dock and that I couldn't figure out how to get back out from under the dock. And so in the demonstration, I ended up going through that experience and being in the freeze energy that happened for me. In those moments where I was stuck and I was banging my head against the dock and then banged my head against the leg of the dock before I had actually figured out how to get myself out from underneath the dock and up to where I could breathe. And again, that was probably seconds of my life. But that experience had and has had a profound experience, a profound impact on my life, which I didn't fully understand until I worked through it during a somatic session with the instructor of the course. The freeze energy that I got into while I was under the dock, where I was disoriented, I didn't really know what was happening, I didn't know how to get myself out of the situation, I didn't know how to get into a spot where I could breathe again. And there was this stuckness that I experienced. And during the somatic session, we were on Zoom. The instructor is in Hawaii and I am in New Hampshire, so we were not in the same room. And she facilitated in a really, really beautiful and highly skilled way, which is why she's the instructor of the course. But she helped me work through that freeze response that happened where a piece of me was stuck underneath the dock. And she facilitated me getting out from underneath the dock. Obviously, I did get out from underneath the dock, right? I'm alive. I'm here. I'm very much alive. And yet there's still a part of me, or has been a part of me, who is stuck underneath the dock, experiencing that freeze energy. And so I won't bore you with all of the details of how she facilitated the thawing of that freeze response and the purge of the freeze response out of my nervous system. But what I can tell you is that the impact on my life has been enormous. When we got to the point in that experience where I was out and I was above the water and breathing, I was still very much in the freeze energy. I was still stuck. And there was a moment where the facilitator pointed out to me that I was alive and that I was out from underneath the water. And I don't even know that I had conscious awareness that these words were coming out of my mouth until they were, and I was hearing them in my ears before I was experiencing them coming out of my mouth. But I said, I am not stuck. And I know that I was responding to her. But I heard myself say, I am not stuck. And in that moment, it was like time stopped. And I hadn't realized just how stuck I have felt in so many aspects of my life, in so many ways. And hearing my own voice say the words, I am not stuck, was transformative. And I understand wholeheartedly that working through what was stuck in my nervous system is what allowed me to recognize that I was not stuck, because a part of me has been stuck underneath that dock. And going back and feeling everything that there was to feel in those moments, in those seconds that were too overwhelming for me to really fully feel as a small child. But actually feeling them and allowing my body and my nervous system to go through the process of purging the survival energy that was stuck in my nervous system, connected to that experience, was transformative. It was absolutely transformative. And like I said, the way that my cohort of the Somatic Experiencing International program is run is that one weekend we will have 2 8-hour days, and then the next weekend we will have 2 8-hour days. And my demonstration was on the first weekend. And what was really magical for me is that it gave me an entire week to observe and witness the shifts that happened inside of me, knowing that I was going to be asked when we returned to class what I had experienced. And so it was really, really fun for me to witness all of the ways that I worked with this shift inside of me of recognizing that I was not stuck. I am not stuck. And I started to see that there was more cervical rotation in my spine. So physically, I could move my neck more than I had previously been able to move it. And that was apparent in the seconds after we finished the demonstration. It was so clear to me. It was like all of a sudden my neck could swivel. I felt like an owl. I was like, wow, look at all this movement. Look at all this movement. And I started to watch the small spaces in my life that are not small, especially when you put them together. I took my children swimming, and I always sit on the back side of the picnic table at the town's beach. And it was my first time taking the kids there after the weekend. I think it was Tuesday or something. And I took my kids to the beach, and I walked up onto the beach, put down our bag, and sat on the front side of the picnic table facing out to the water. Whereas normally I was sitting on the back side of the picnic table facing the water. And even that is the demonstration of not being stuck. I normally sit with a picnic table in front of me, with my legs underneath the picnic table and the picnic table against my torso, very much stuck. And when I got to the beach and I walked up to the picnic table and I put down our bag with the towels and the goggles and the suntan lotion and all the things, and I sat down on the front of the picnic table, and I sat there watching my kids, and it was probably 3 or 4 seconds, and I thought, I'm sitting on the front of the picnic table. I've not chosen to put myself on the backside where I am literally stuck in there. I literally have to crawl out from underneath the picnic table. But I was making that choice on repeat. Do you know how many times I've taken my kids to the town beach and sat on the backside of the picnic table? And it wasn't a conscious choice. It wasn't like I walked up to the picnic table and thought, I'm going to sit on the front side. I just did. My body just chose to sit on the front side of the picnic table. And I was sitting there reflecting about it, thinking, wow. Wow. And this may seem like a really small example, right? You may be sitting here saying, okay, you sat on the front side of the picnic table. Good for you, Erin. But it's so much more than that. It's so symbolic. My nervous system was feeling so stuck that I was choosing places that felt stuck. And when my nervous system no longer felt stuck, it was an automatic choice to sit in a place of freedom, to sit in a spot that was much more expansive. And so I hope you can see that just with the picnic table, it's about so much more than the picnic table. My body, my energy was automatically choosing for me a more stuck option when it had available to it freedom, openness. And I wasn't choosing it. It didn't even occur to me to sit on the front side of the picnic table. Just like when I walked up, it didn't occur to me that I would sit anywhere other than the front side of the picnic table. And it wasn't until I was doing it that I was able to witness what I was doing and be able to connect it back to that somatic experience. And I watched my mindset open. There are so many things that I'd been thinking that I had 3 choices. There were 3 options available to me. And there were things that I'd thought about for a long time. And all of a sudden, there became limitless options. There weren't just 3. I'd made a story in my mind that there were 3. There's limitless options. Only my mind had brought me down into a very stuck place of 3 options, when there are literally limitless options. And I watched a drastic change in the way that I thought, in the way that I spoke, in the way that I processed emotions. I wasn't getting stuck in them. I wasn't getting stuck in thought patterns. I wasn't looping in thought patterns. That freeze response that was in my nervous system was having an enormous impact on my life, my relationships, my business, my body, my choice of food. Everything. It literally was having an impact on every aspect of my life. And I had no idea that this experience that seemed like, yeah, it's something I knew happened. It was really scary. I can still remember the moment of sitting in my mom's lap. I can still remember that. But I had no idea how much that experience was creating stuckness and freeze energy in every aspect of my life. I became open to ideas inside of my business that had never even occurred to me. I watched all sorts of things inside of me open up. And I didn't need to do anything to make that happen. It was simply because my nervous system was no longer stuck. And I wanted to tell this story because our bodies remember every experience that we have. Our bodies truly keep the score. And when you allow your body to complete incomplete responses, to feel things that you weren't resourced enough to fully feel in the moment that it was happening, it will open up things in your life in a way that you have no idea what an impact it's going to be. And if you're curious about somatic healing, if you're curious about what is being held in your nervous system, I just want to invite you to find a practitioner who feels safe to you and just give it a try. Give it a try and see what happens. And watch for the subtleness, because some of it will feel and look really subtle. But when you add it all up, there's nothing subtle about it. I've watched over the past 2 weeks my life, my thought patterns, my reality change hugely. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot, do it. If you feel a calling to working with a somatic practitioner to see what is held in your nervous system that simply needs to be completed or felt so that it can be completed, do it. Do it. I hope that you are having a beautiful morning, day, evening, or night, wherever it is that this podcast is reaching you. And I really appreciate you being here with us at Rose Quartz Mediumship Podcast.